Why do we choose who we choose? Insights from attachment theory and evolution. Have you ever wondered why you're attracted to certain people but not others? Or what really makes two people compatible long-term? I'm here to share the fascinating psychological secrets behind relationships. In Life of Psychology, I've studied what draws us to potential partners and predicts success better than anything else. Spoiler alert, it's not always what you think. Through real case studies and the latest research, I'll reveal factors like attachment styles, communication habits, and evolutionary traits that influence who we click with. Whether you're single and dating, in a relationship, or freshly out of one after this video, you'll have a whole new perspective. You'll understand yourself and others in a way that can transform your bonds forever. I'm talking concrete tips to find fulfilling connections, resolve conflicts in a healthy way, and feel truly satisfied with who you choose to spend your life with. Doesn't that sound life-changing? So if you want to decode the mysteries of attraction once and for all, learn the science behind lasting love, and gain insights that could impact your future, then you don't want to miss what I have to share. Let's get started with the first fascinating factor. Segment 1: Basic Human Needs. Alright, in that introduction I promised to reveal the psychological secrets behind relationships. Let's get started with the first fascinating factor. Our basic human needs. On an evolutionary level, relationships fulfill 3 core requirements for survival: security, belonging, and intimacy. Our brains are literally wired to seek out partners who can provide these necessities. Think about it, thousands of years ago, our ancestors needed a mate who could protect them from threats, share resources during hard times, and help raise offspring. Meeting these survival and reproductive needs increase the chances of passing on our genes. Even today, beneath our conscious thoughts, our subconscious minds still prioritize finding someone who fulfills these primordial requirements. We gravitate towards potential partners based on cues that signal they can be a good long-term provider and protector. So whether you realize it or not, these basic needs play a huge role in who you're naturally attracted to. Your brain is looking for signs like physical strength, status, wealth, traits that would have indicated fitness and ability to provide back in ancestral environments. In the next segment, we'll explore exactly what kinds of traits still unconsciously attract us based on evolution. But for now, I hope this gives you a new perspective on why relationships are so psychologically important, and how our most primal needs shape who we click with. Any questions so far?
Segment 2: Evolutionary Influences. Alright, in our last segment we discussed how relationships fulfill basic human needs for survival on an evolutionary level. Now let's dive into exactly what kinds of traits still unconsciously attract us based on our ancestral past. When you meet someone new, what initially draws you to them physically? Chances are it's traits like symmetry, health, youth, and fertility cues. Our brains subconsciously identify these as proxies for genetic fitness. Symmetry shows good development and lack of genetic abnormalities. Youth signals reproductive ability. And for women, traits like a masculine jaw or facial hair on a man communicate high testosterone levels associated with genetic fitness. Beyond looks, we're also drawn to signs of status like expensive clothing, nice cars, or job prestige. These act as proxies for resources and ability to provide. For women especially, a partner's financial situation and earning potential still plays a role in attraction, even if it's not consciously acknowledged. It's also no coincidence we tend to find people of our own race more attractive. Sticking within one's own gene pool helped avoid outbreeding depression in our evolutionary past. Of course, attraction is complex with many factors at play, but these evolutionary influences provide an interesting framework for why we initially notice certain traits over others when meeting a potential mate. They satisfy our subconscious needs for healthy, capable partners who could ensure survival and reproductive success. In our next segment, we'll discuss how attraction becomes more than skin deep when compatibility enters the picture. But for now, any other questions on these evolutionary drivers of attraction? Segment 3: Subjective Attraction. Alright, In the last segment, we explored how evolutionary factors unconsciously influence the traits we notice in potential partners. But attraction is also highly personal and subjective. Our individual experiences, preferences, and backgrounds shape who we're drawn to in very unique ways. What one person finds attractive, another may not feel the same way about at all. This comes down to things like what messaging or behaviors we were exposed to while growing up. If a parent emphasized certain traits as desirable, we can internalize that. Or life experiences could condition us to value specific qualities after positive relationships where those traits were present. On a basic level too, we simply have preferences that are hardwired, like whether we favor more masculine or feminine traits, athletic or artistic partners, adventurous or home-oriented lifestyles. So while evolutionary instincts provide a framework, subjective factors ensure there are no universal rules when it comes to attraction. Two people can look at the exact same individual and come to completely different conclusions about their appeal or attractiveness.
This is why pursuing attraction based on authentic connection, rather than superficial traits alone, usually leads to more fulfilling relationships. When compatibility and emotional bond take priority over fleeting physical appeal. In our next segment, we'll dive deeper into exactly what compatibility looks like from a psychological perspective. But for now, any other questions on the subjective nature of attraction? Segment for compatibility factors. In the previous segments, we've explored how evolutionary instincts and individual preferences shape initial attraction. But as relationships progress, compatibility becomes the bigger predictor of long-term satisfaction and success. So what exactly makes two people truly compatible? From a psychological standpoint, compatibility is influenced most by personality fit, values alignment, and communication style match. Personality fit speaks to complementing each other's traits rather than being too similar, which can breed conflict, or too different, which makes meeting needs difficult. Do your natural tendencies balance or coincide in a harmonious way? Values alignment looks at priorities, goals, views on topics like money, parenting, and politics. Shared values provide a solid foundation, while major differences can cause tension over time. And communication style match is key. Do you both feel heard and understand each other through active listening, body language, and assertiveness habits? Compatible styles here help resolve conflicts constructively. Beyond these factors, compatibility is also strengthened by sharing interests, humor styles, and approaches to stress or emotions. Finding someone who matches or complements our soft skills ultimately leads to greater satisfaction and longevity. In our next segment, we'll discuss another psychological phenomenon that can influence compatibility, the mere exposure effect. But for now, any other questions on what truly makes two people well-suited? Segment 5, the mere exposure effect. In the previous segments, we discussed factors like personality, values, and communication that determine compatibility on a deeper level. But psychology also shows proximity plays an underrated role in relationships forming. The mere exposure effect demonstrates that simply being around someone frequently increases our liking and attraction towards them over time. Through repeated, casual interactions with the same individuals, we grow familiar and comfortable. This applies in everyday contexts like neighborhoods, schools, and workplaces. Proximity makes bonding more likely as familiarity breeds positive feelings. We interpret familiar faces as more likable and trustworthy compared to strangers. From an evolutionary perspective, investing energy in those closest to us through proximity made sense to ensure survival. Our ancestors needed tight-knit communities for protection and resource sharing.
Even today, we often end up in relationships with people we encountered regularly through circumstance rather than active searching. The unconscious influence of mere exposure nudges us towards compatibility with familiar individuals. Of course, proximity alone does not guarantee compatibility if other factors, like personality, are misaligned. But it does make initial attraction more likely, sometimes even towards people we may not consider our type at a distance. In our next segment, we'll discuss different attraction styles shaped by our early experiences. But for now, Any other questions on the mere exposure effect? Segment 6. Physical versus emotional attraction styles. In the previous segments, we've explored various psychological factors that influence attraction and compatibility. Another important consideration is our individual attraction styles, whether we primarily value physical or emotional qualities in a partner. Attachment theory research shows our earliest caregiving relationships shape these styles. Those with secure attachments as infants tend to emphasize emotional intimacy, trust, and communication in adult bonds. Conversely, insecure attachments can result in styles prioritizing physical attraction and thrill-seeking over deep connection. A lack of warmth and responsiveness as babies may condition us to seek validation through looks and sexual chemistry. Of course, most fall somewhere in between on the spectrum from purely physical to entirely emotional attraction, and our styles can evolve as attachment patterns are reworked through therapy. It's important to note neither style is inherently better, but understanding your own preferences provides self-awareness. This allows choosing partners who fulfill your needs while respecting different attraction styles. In others, mismatching in this area often leads to dissatisfaction, as physical faders feel unfulfilled, while emotion-focused individuals crave intimacy. Compatibility requires meeting each other where you are in this respect. In our next segment, we'll delve deeper into attachment theory and how it shapes relationships. But first, any other questions about physical versus emotional attraction styles? Segment 7. Attachment theory. We've discussed how our earliest caregiving experiences profoundly influence the formation of our attachment styles. In this segment, let's explore attachment theory in more depth. Attachment theory was pioneered in the mid-20th century by researchers John Bowlby and Mary Ainsworth. John Bowlby was a British psychiatrist who conducted groundbreaking research on the effects of separation and loss on children in the 1950s and 60s. He theorized that infants have an inborn need for a strong attachment to their caregiver for survival.
Mary Ainsworth was a Canadian-American psychologist who worked closely with Bowlby. In the 1960s and 70s, she developed the strange situation experiment to empirically study Bowlby's theories. This involved observing infant responses in brief separations and reunions with their mothers. Ainsworth identified patterns of secure, anxious, and avoidant attachment that are still used today. Together, Bowlby and Ainsworth's research established attachment theory as an important framework for understanding social-emotional development. Their work showed how early caregiving experiences shape internal working models that influence relationships throughout life. Secure attachment arises from consistent warmth, responsiveness, and meeting needs. It fosters autonomy, trust, and ability to healthily bond. Anxious preoccupied attachment stems from inconsistent care, sometimes meeting needs but also being rejecting. This conditions high anxiety about abandonment in relationships. Avoidant attachment results from caregivers being emotionally unavailable, distant, or rejecting. It leads to discomfort with intimacy and independence being prioritized over closeness. Finally, disorganized attachment occurs in abusive or traumatic environments lacking safety. It disrupts ability to form coherent strategies, causing relationship issues. These styles then influence behaviors in adult partnerships. But they can be reworked through security-promoting experiences, like counseling, supportive relationships, and parenting differently than we were raised. Understanding your attachment pattern provides insight into relationship strengths and growing edges. In the next segment, we'll discuss effective communication techniques grounded in psychological research. Does this help explain attachment theory and how it relates to compatibility? Let me know if any part needs more clarification. Segment 8. Effective communication. Strong communication skills are vital for healthy, long-lasting relationships. In this segment, let's discuss techniques grounded in psychological research that foster closeness and compatibility between partners. One key is active listening. This means fully focusing on the other person without distraction, understanding their perspective through reflective listening tools, and asking open-ended questions to clarify meaning. Active listening makes the speaker feel heard and respected. Assertiveness is also important. It's about respectfully standing up for one's needs, thoughts, and feelings using I statements without attacking the other person. This encourages open dialogue and problem-solving between equals. Compromise arises when both parties find a middle ground, perhaps by addressing an issue from the other's viewpoint to identify alternative solutions. Validating each other's experiences and meeting halfway helps resolve conflicts constructively. Other skills include expressing gratitude, showing affection, apologizing when wrong, and quality time together without distractions like phones. Regular check-ins help air issues before they escalate. Of course, communication styles must match attachment patterns and personality traits to feel natural. But these evidence-based techniques, when practiced, can strengthen any relationship. In our next segment, we'll discuss strategies for resolving conflicts in a healthy way. But first, any other questions on effective communication? Segment 9: Resolving Conflicts Constructively. Being able to successfully navigate disagreements and conflicts is crucial for compatibility and relationship well-being over the long term. In this segment, let's discuss strategies grounded in psychology. When issues arise, avoid attacking behaviors like criticism, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling. Express feelings calmly without insults using I feel statements. Take responsibility for your role without blame. Most people have a preferred conflict resolution mode, either direct discussion, third-party mediation, or taking time or space before revisiting the problem. Understanding each other's styles helps compromise. Focus on the specific issue, not global character attacks. Stay solution-focused by brainstorming options together respectfully. Be willing to concede minor points to find agreement on major ones. Validate the other person's perspective without necessarily agreeing. Finding common ground or reframing positively can diffuse tension. Take breaks as needed to relax physically and emotionally before continuing. Remember, conflict itself is natural and unavoidable. But how you choose to navigate disagreements long-term will impact compatibility. Approaching problems as a team with care, empathy, and respect sets the stage for resolution. In our next segment, we'll discuss reflecting on relationships to strengthen bonds. Any other questions on resolving conflicts constructively? Segment 10: Reflection on Relationships. Taking time for self-reflection is important in any relationship to foster closeness and growth over the long run. In this segment, let's discuss strategies to assess how well your needs are being met. Reflect on how you feel emotionally, physically, and mentally when with your partner. Do interactions leave you energized or drained? Do you feel heard, respected, and cared for? Make sure both needs for independence and closeness are balanced. Evaluate if your core values are aligned when making life decisions. Do you approach challenges as a team with compromise? Compatibility strengthens when goals, priorities, and lifestyles mesh. Examine attachment patterns and communication styles from time to time. Are you able to be vulnerable without fear of rejection? Do you resolve conflicts in a healthy way? Mismatched patterns strain bonds if not addressed.
Consider love languages and ways you each feel loved. Physical touch, words of affirmation, acts of service. Compatibility increases when you understand each other on this level. Self-reflection provides insight to strengthen relationships through open communication and compromise when needed. Our final segment will conclude with key takeaways. Conclusion. In our time together, we've covered many fascinating psychological factors that influence attraction, compatibility, and relationship well-being. To summarize some key takeaways: 1. Evolutionary instincts and individual preferences shape initial attraction, while compatibility relies more on personality fit, values alignment, and communication style match over the long term. 2. Understanding attachment patterns provides insight into our caregiving histories and how they impact bonding styles as adults. 3. Compatibility hinges on resolving conflicts through calm, empathetic discussion focused on compromise rather than personal attacks. 4. Reflecting regularly on relationship needs, goals, and love languages helps strengthen closeness through open communication and addressing issues respectfully. While psychology sheds light on relationship dynamics, every person and bond is complexly unique. I hope these evidence-based insights are helpful for you to assess your connections and identify areas for growth. Please remember to be compassionate with yourself and others. Relationships take ongoing care, but understanding the science behind them can help nurture closeness and long-term satisfaction. Thank you for learning with me today. I hope you leave feeling empowered to build healthy, fulfilling bonds. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. If you have any other question or topic want to discuss, please leave a comment below. This is Life of Psychology, signing off.